So, related to the psychoanalytic perspective are projective personality tests. We talked about Freud, um, but there are ways to tap into personality. The general premise of a projective test is that if I were to ask you directly about certain things, especially if they're taboos, and I ask you directly, you're probably going to be dishonest. So if I were to ask you to talk about things like number of romantic partners you've had, or substance abuse, or divorce, or any of these things, if I were to tap into that, you might feel compelled to misrepresent yourself. Or it could be more basic personality attributes that you're not happy with. So you might filter. So the goal of a projective test is to intentionally give you ambiguous stimuli and use that as a means for tapping into your personality, tapping into some of those taboos or things you wouldn't necessarily admit to readily. So examples of projective tests, and there are many, but the two on this slide are the Rorschach inkblot tests, and these are a series of black and white, grayscale, and color cards where you ask the person what they see in the card, and you go through all the cards and then ultimately ask them, well, where do they see it? And then you start to analyze based on the content, their answers, whether it's a typical response or an atypical response, as well as other aspects of their answer, location, movement, shading, whatever it might be, could indicate some underlying feelings or emotions, right? And it could reveal something that you might not admit by yourself. Now, the Rorschach test has 10 cards, right? The TAT is another projective test. Now, the TAT, or thematic apperception test, actually has 30 cards. Now, we don't give you all 30. There is a standard battery of 10 cards we give two. And in this test, we ask people to tell a story, right? So we ask them to tell a story that has a beginning, middle, end, and to share some thoughts of feelings that one of the characters might be having. And based on the pattern of responses, we get some insight as to how that person resolves conflict, their general state of emotions, and so forth. Okay, so if we look at the following two, on the left, you have the Rorschach. On the right, you have the TAT. These are individual cards, which means that there's no way of truly interpreting your personality from either one card or one story. So I'm going to ask if you're up to it. Is there anyone who would like to tell me what they see on the card on the left, right? So the Rorschach ink blot. Anyone see anything in the card? Gabriel.
Kind of looks like a bat-ish figure. I don't know, like a bat kind of figure or like some sort of like symbol. That's what it reminds me of.
Okay, so you see some kind of bat. Fine. Yeah. Jenna.
I don't know, like I see kind of like two rats on top, and then I kind of see like the bat that like he's talking about.
Mhm. So you see a couple things in there, right? And that's an important thing because when we do the Rorschach, we need a minimum of 14 responses, and there are 10 cards. which means that people are going to say, I see this, I see that, I see multiple things, right? As Jenna, you did, right? And we even tell people, it's not uncommon for people to see many things in these cards. So you see, two things. Anyone see anything different?
I see like a bug, like a moth.
A bug and a moth, right? Now, people, if you look at the center, most people see this as some kind of insect body or bug. That's a very common answer, right? By the way, all of the answers you gave were common, so I don't want anyone to become nervous and say, oh, was my answer atypical? But there are a lot of things you could say. Gabriel.
I would say in addition to the bat that I said before, I would say like also kind of like a mask or like some kind of like wolf figure as
There.
well, or like yeah.
Yeah, so somehow a wolf figure with the eyes and like the jawline and goatee or whatever you want to see, right? So you might see a wolf in this picture. There are a lot of things you could see. Now, what I would do is I would give you all 10 cards. Now, this card was black and white. Some cards are grayscale, right? So they have black and gray. And then some cards have black and white and grayscale and color. And color could reflect one's emotions. So sometimes people project emotions onto colors, and so forth. But I appreciate your help in telling me what you see. Right after the 10 cards, I would look for patterns. Okay, let's move to the right now. The TAT, or thematic apperception test. The first word is thematic, or from the root theme, right? So we're looking for themes in stories. So if I were to ask a person to tell a story based on the card on the right, it wouldn't tell me anything as one card. It's all the cards collectively will start to give me patterns of responses. So that's why once again, I feel comfortable showing this picture as well. So does anyone have a story that they might want to add to this? Again, it has to have a beginning, middle, end, thought, and feeling, which means, and I see Jenna, you raised your hand, so you could do it, but you have to tell me what happened before this picture, what's happening in this scene, what do you think's going to happen in the end, and what one of these characters thinking and feeling. So Jenna, you raised your hand, so you're up.
I'm gonna say like before what happened, like it looks like a woman. She's probably like on her own, living in a house, and maybe like she was. I'm trying to think like how because maybe she was like hearing spirits, and because I was thinking like the one behind her looked like, I don't know, it kind of looked like a spirit because like
Okay.
it doesn't look like a real person. I mean, like it just looks like a ghost in a way.
Yeah, so some kind of ghost or spirit. So she was hanging out. She heard or saw this spirit.
Um, I would say she heard it like in the house, and then I guess like it just like started following her around like wherever like she was doing or
Mhm.
going, and like she always like heard it or like seen like maybe signs that that spirit was there and like knew what she was doing.
Okay. So what's going to happen next?
Um, I'd say like maybe she tries to like call someone and like I guess someone that's like good at like detecting like spirits and someone who knows how to maybe get rid of it.
Yeah.
And maybe like the spirit has a message for her and is trying, like maybe that's why it's following her around because it's trying to give her a message, but she's creeped out, so she just wants like the spirit gone, maybe.
So she's feeling creeped out and she's thinking she wants the spirit gone. Okay. That's a good example, right? And thank you for that, right? So you could see I'm listening for 5 pieces. What happened before, what's happening now, what kind of resolution is going to happen? She's going to call someone who's good at dealing with spirits, right? And she's feeling creeped out and she's thinking she wants the spirit gone, right? So those elements are there. Now, what does this card mean by itself? Nothing. It means nothing, right? Uh, so I can't interpret Jenna's personality from this card either. But let's say I gave her all 10 cards and there's some kind of supernatural, metaphysical theme that comes up. Well, then I could say that perhaps this individual's religiously preoccupied, right? But one card doesn't tell anything. Now, other things that people do with this, because I want to keep our lecture going, but other stories people tell, sometimes they tell the story from the person in the foreground as, um, you know, thinking about what it's like to get old or older, or if you want, you have the person in the back reminiscing about their youth, right? So that's a very common theme that comes out of this card, as well as because of Disney and fairy tale Grimm, you have that whole like Wicked Witch and the Poison Apple theme, right? So you do get these kind of themes pulled out of these cards, and you have to write it verbatim, you have to code it, and then you're looking for like I said, conflict resolution, how they deal with problems. That's when we ask, well, what do you think is going to happen next? We're looking to see uh, how you resolve conflict, right? So in this case, Jenna said she's going to call someone who knows how to deal with spirits, right? Um, and then we'll see, like let's say she said, and you didn't say this, but let's say you said, oh, she's just going to deal with it. She's going to do nothing and have to deal with this person around. And then over time, like all of these cards, she's like, oh, well, they're going to just be. Well, that tells me that there's some issue with approaching conflict, right? If that were the case. But notice the interpretation is not based on a clear cut correct or incorrect response. There's no true, false, agree, strongly disagree. It has none of that. It's basically very ambiguous. And we're looking for aspects of personality based on it. Now, another nice thing about this card, and then I'll move on, is that you have people of differing age brackets. So it also shows how you relate to uh, equals, people who are above you, superior, not literally, but perhaps in age, and subordinates, people are younger than you, right? So we can tap into how we deal with power and age related factors too. So there's a lot there, but that's the flavor of Freud and a lot of the projective tests that come out of it. I'm going to go into Freud's followers. So let me stop the recording and do that separately.